Thanks everyone for joining the Ask Us Anything. We are going to give everybody a minute as we see folks still joining. So we're going to get started here in about 30 seconds. All right, so this is NMFTA's Ask Us Anything. So this is something that we started, I believe it was last month or about a month and a half ago. It started as a 30-minute session, and we decided to continue it and extend it to an hour. And this is a live Q&A where we're giving people an opportunity to ask us anything. And so we're answering questions about the NMFC data changes. We're also talking about the NMFC Item Lookup Tool that we launched a few months ago, and then also talking about ClassIT Plus. And so, by way of introductions, I'm Joe Orr, the COO at NMFTA. And so, I've been really involved with both initiatives. And with me today, I've got Holly Taylor. So, Holly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Taylor. I'm the Director of Product here at NMFTA. And yeah, we've been hip deep in everything ClassIT Plus and getting prepared for the NMFC changes.
And Keith Peterson.
Hi, I'm Keith Peterson, Director of Operations here at NMFTA, and have direct responsibility for the classification team and making sure that we get everything set up correctly in the NMFC to get 2025-1 out correctly, and really a little bit over 6 weeks now. So,
All right. And so what we want to do today is, Holly, do you want to go over, I think the first thing we always like to do is go over the important dates.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just have a few key dates we wanted to highlight. Like Joe was mentioning earlier, we have the NMFC Item Lookup Tool that was available starting April 21st, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then on May 20th, just 9 days ago, we kicked off our not only our beta, but we also kicked off our sandbox testing for API so that people can get access and start testing their integrations. And then we have the release on July 15th of ClassIT Plus. And then on July 19th is the effective date for the NMFC data changes.
All right. And we also, one of the milestones that's not in there, we also kicked off the API beta, and that kicked off this week. So on the NMFC changes, we've got over 7,000 registered users. So that's a key resource that we want to talk about. And then on Get Classification, that's really a resource where we've got all old webinars. We've also got things related to the docket changes. We've got guides and tools related to whether you're a shipper, a broker, or a carrier. You can go and look at everything that's changing. We've also got changes related to ClassIT Plus. And then the last tool is classitplus.com, where we talk about all the changes in ClassIT Plus. We've also got a lot of folks are interested in our API documentation. There's also links to that, where if you're an integrator or if you do your own integration and you're a carrier or a broker or a shipper, you can access our API integration. At the bottom of this page is a Q&A button. So if you have any questions about anything, please use the Q&A button and we'll just start going through some questions. I do have a couple kickoff questions I'll ask, but please feel free to use that Q&A button.
hey, Joe, I just wanted to point out, I think you might have gotten the websites a little bit backwards there. So getclassification.com is where we have 7,000 registered users of it.
sorry.
And that's where you actually go
Sorry.
to look up an old item number. And then that NMFCchanges.com is it's really become someplace where we've put everything that we've gathered around these changes and how people can prepare.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Ollie.
I was going to say, it looks like we do have this first question, and it is actually about the ClassIT calculator. And, you know, throughout this session, not only will we be answering the questions that come in, but every once in a while we'll take a little break and maybe give you guys a demo of just a few things. And I'd like to demo the calculator that will be available in ClassIT Plus. So the question is, would it be possible to move the clear button on the ClassIT calculator, because there have been times where you inadvertently click that button? So what's great, there's a couple of great things about ClassIT Plus when it comes to the calculator. We have redesigned the application so that, you know, so that the density calculator, it's just a little bit more modern, a little bit more streamlined. So hopefully that clear button, as you can see right here, it's very, very prominent. We have really good spacing around it. So hopefully that won't happen again. But something else I want to point out is the functionality of the calculators have not changed. All of our calculators that are available now will carry over to ClassIT Plus. You can see a bit of a redesign. It's a little bit easier to delete rows, to add rows. We also have that conversion tool. You can set your, you can convert your measurements, and one of the great things that we do have is this reference item lookup. And what you can do with this is you can actually search for an item, and then we will pull that up, and then we would actually select it. And once it's selected, it becomes a reference down here in the corner of the calculator. So as you're going through your calculations, you can actually reference the item number that you're working with, and you can see the class information. You can also access the calculator directly from search. So if I pull up an item and I go directly to the search, I can actually go straight to the calculator from my search results, and it will actually preload that information for me. So there's just a little sneak peek into the calculator.
Hey, Holly, can you talk a little bit about from an API perspective, the calculator functionality?
Yeah, actually, yeah, let me go back. So we have our API documentation is out in our help center right now. So if you go to our help center, you can actually access the ClassIT API documentation. And we have several things available through the calculator. So you can actually submit dimensions and pull back the same calculations that you just saw. So you can enter the same information, your handling unit count, the length, the width, the height, and then the weight, handling unit weight, and we will return the handling unit count, volume, and density, and your total calculations to you. So you'll be able to use the API for the same exact calculator.
Okay.
And all of this information is available out here. You can see that we have down here the different API objects about the calculator, as well as all of our other methods are also listed.
Okay. Thank you. So Keith, are pallet DIMs required on bill of lading starting 7/19, or is this specific to each carrier?
So I'll start with, we're not changing anything as far as what's required on the bill of lading when it comes to 2025-1. But I do want to point out that if your freight is on a pallet, and you really should be taking dimensions from the widest or most outward part of your freight there. So, and if the pallet is the widest part of it here, then you should be taking dimensions on that here. So the pallet should be included on dimensions here, you know, and especially if you think about height as well here. So, but it's a good place to kind of point out that, one thing I've said over and over again is that this is a great chance to really get to know your freight and how you're preparing it for shipment. And if your freight isn't taking up the entire pallet, then keep in mind, the dimensions are the dimensions. It should be from the most outward point of that handling unit. So if it's the pallet, then yeah, that's your width, your length it should be at the edges of the pallet there. So you may want to take a look and see if there's a better way to prepare your freight for shipment.
Okay. One of the questions has to do with, how we're supporting TMS vendors. And if you're a TMS vendor, we give, there's a sandbox agreement where we give you access to the sandbox. What we want to do is if you're a TMS, we want you to have integration. Our goal is to have the license agreement with the shippers, the carriers, and the brokers, especially if you're representing the carriers. So our contracts are with the carriers themselves. And then that way there's no markup. The TMSs aren't having to resell. If you are a TMS that represents some of the small shippers, definitely we'll reach out. We can reach out to you and talk about that. But if you represent the carriers, we would have you have that on their paper. That way our agreement is actually with that carrier. And again, we think that that's the best way to do it. Therefore, it's the most affordable. But as far as a question on that, we can reach out. We are trying to work with all the major TMSs, and then any TMS that's reached out to us, we are working with. Holly, one of the questions, talk about the free lookup tool and what, I mean, the lookup tool has been much more popular than what we anticipated, which is great. So talk about the transition of the lookup tool once we go live in July.
Yeah, so the lookup tool will continue to be available until we release in July. And honestly, I mean, we haven't set a date where we're going to take it down. The lookup tool is going to be useful for everyone as they transition to the 2025-1 changes, and we want to make that tool available. So for now, the tool will be available, expect it to be available until we release and until the effective date of July 19th. And in the future, that tool will continue to grow and support everyone's needs and evolve along with ClassIT Plus. But for now, it'll be available as a free tool for you until we release in July.
And then, Holly, is it correct that the tool will then become part of ClassIT Plus itself?
Yes, exactly. So the plan is to integrate the tool into ClassIT Plus itself prior to the next round of changes. And so that'll be a future enhancement that will be coming.
Okay, perfect. And then one of the questions is there a free version of ClassIT? So the answer is that there's not a free version, but Holly, talk a little bit about where someone can find the pricing and just a quick overview of the pricing of ClassIT Plus.
Yeah, ClassIT Plus, the pricing is available out there at classitplus.com. You can purchase a single seat, so for less than $300, you can get a single seat and have access to ClassIT Plus. The more licenses you buy, the greater your discount. So if you do need, several licenses, we're going to give you a discount. We really want to encourage users to really use the tool, and so the more you buy, the greater your discount. Members of NMFTA also get discounts, so please go out to classitplus.com and take a look at our pricing.
Okay. And then Keith, there is a question related to well, either one of you guys, there's a question related to the calculator. Well, the calculator suggests if a certain size pallet should be rated to 96, so you have a pallet that's 48, 42, 76. Example, uh, it's got with the logistics tariff. So talk a little bit about tariff and how that all works and how that's tied in, or if it's tied into the calculator. And
Sure.
Keith, maybe
So
talk about tariffs in general.
yeah, I'll try to handle both, but Holly, feel free to jump in there. But our calculator is gonna take it according to what we show in the NMFC. Tariffs or FAKs or anything like that really are dependent on the carrier. So that's carrier by carrier, and those are not handled in the NMFC at all here. Um, so, if you put in 48 by 42 by 76, we're going to give a density based on those factors there. So, um, so, and so really that's going to what's going to happen. Now we can't account for like a tariff from that carrier that's named in there as well here. So, and that would be something that, you'd have to take a look at on a carrier by carrier basis. So.
And then Keith, which takes precedence, density or commodity? An example, eyelashes commodity is CL 400, but density is 2250
Sure. So
or
for a long
250.
time, uh, classification has been making density the primary characteristic when we really kind of look at commodities as a whole here. So I don't know off the top of my head the item number for eyelashes here. So I actually, if I had a chance, I'd go look that up there. But that is something that could be changed. It might have been at a certain class or a single class or modified density scale before. With the once 2025-1 becomes effective, without really knowing, but it could be one of the items that's going to full scale density. So it'll make density the primary characteristic on that, and be according to the 13 sub full density scale that we've put out there here. So.
Okay. So, and we did get this, we do have this question. And it's a question that some people say, well, should we answer? But we will. Why not go straight density, like Canada does? And really we listened and got a lot of feedback from our members that represent the LTL industry. And that's a question that we asked is, what does this look like? We got a lot of feedback that it's what we have now is too complex. We've got to take density into consideration, but there are other factors that have to stay into play. Some people think we went too far. Some people think we didn't go far enough, but we really leaned on feedback to do what the membership and the community, the LTL industry thought was best. And that's why we did what we did. We really listened to feedback. So Keith, can you talk about what those factors are that we are really looking at outside of density and why those factors are important?
Sure. So for a long time, the NMFC has had a lot of different characteristics that they look at when it comes to evaluating commodities. But what we've boiled it down to and what we're working to really kind of move everything to when we look at characteristics is 4 of them, right? Density being the main one, as we just discussed, but there's also handling, stowability, and liability. And those factors can really affect, how much freight can be rated at, basically. So when you think of being able to move that freight easily or stow it easily within the trailer. I always try to credit Rob Estes when it comes to the saying, because it always kind of sticks in my mind. especially when I read that question. So his question to people is always, what weighs more, a ton of feathers or a ton of bowling balls? And the answer is they weigh the same. It's just one takes up a lot more room than the other. And that's a good way to look at how the NMFC looks at commodities when it comes to classification here. Some of these commodities, while they may not be heavy, but they still take up a lot of room, and these carriers really charge by room it takes up on the trailer, and they need a classification system in order to do that here.
Thanks, Keith. So the lookup tool, there's a question about, hey, what if I've entered an incorrect NMFC? So the lookup tool only has the information from the 2025-1 docket. It doesn't have everything that's loaded in the NMFC itself, but just the things from that particular docket. So if you enter an invalid in an NMFC number, it won't know it. It's only going to look at things from that docket. It's not going. It doesn't. We didn't load the entire database. And the reason that we did it is we wanted to produce something that's quick and free and available to everyone. If you want something that looks at the whole docket, that's more ClassIT Plus. But that's why it does that, is it only looks at that specific docket. Holly, anything you want to add regarding the lookup tool, or Keith?
No, I think you pretty much said it all, Joe. I mean, the tool is to help people prepare for the 2025-1 changes. So if you are entering an incorrect number, it's not going to check that. It's really just going to check for anything that's changing on July 19th.
Okay. And if you do have questions concerning the lookup tool itself, there is a contact us button that you can utilize. And then Keith, if you have questions about classification, how can someone get a hold of your team?
Sure. I mean, so you can request an interpretation. You can do that through the NMFC store, the NMFTA store, excuse me, here. So where you can just purchase an interpretation for really not much, and they'll request some information around the commodity that you're looking at, and give you an interpretation from there. Otherwise, there's always I'm going to say ClassIT. I'm trying to get used to that here. There's always ClassIT and eventually ClassIT Plus as well. That is really out there to help you search for the correct commodity and learn the definition and the terms around that commodity as well.
Keith, do you anticipate or do we anticipate a large number of invoicing issues between what a carrier claims as freight dimensions and weight dimensions versus what the shipper claims on a BOL?
So I do anticipate at the start of this, there is going to be a period of time where things are going to, possibly, be somewhat confusing, especially because there's both new item numbers and a lot of items moving to full scale density here. But what I want to point out, and one thing we've kept consistent on the entire time here, is that you really have to get to know what your freight looks like as you're preparing it for shipment and as it's leaving your dock here. Shippers, they need to get the dimensions and the weight as well, and provide that information when you're setting up the shipment. And that's really the key to bringing down any kind of reclassifications or anything for when it goes over the LTL docks here. So that is probably the most important thing when it comes to this. There's already, reclassifications already here, but the more you can provide good information, the less you'll have those here.
And Keith, I guess to add on to that, when we travel and go to the different shows, I think probably the number one question we get is if I'm a shipper, if I'm a carrier, if I'm a broker, how do I prepare? And I think this question really comes down to, if I'm a shipper, how do I prepare? And
Yeah.
what are some of the suggestions that we've been giving?
Yeah, so number one, there's a great checklist at nmfcchanges.com, a shipper's checklist that you can go in and download actually for you to use. But what it boils down to is, number one, get to know your freight profile, really your shipping profile. So what does your freight look like as it's being prepared, as it's prepared for shipment? And getting to know that and getting the dimensions and weight of that freight is probably the number one thing, and recording it down, getting it on the bill of lading, including in the information when you're setting up the shipment here. Probably the next thing is to start talking to your carriers about your freight and what they're seeing as well. And what they're planning when it comes to these changes here. Make sure you're reaching out and initiating these conversations if they haven't been initiated with you. Reach out, talk to them about what they see is going to change, specifically with the freight that you guys are that the shippers are shipping, I guess, for lack of a better term here. So those are the two main things we talk about, but there's more information on those checklists here as well.
Okay. And then Keith, the second question, and we were talking before, what are the top three? Talk a little bit about, we always get questions about FAKs, and I saw a question pop in about FAKs. So can you talk a little bit about if a carrier has an FAK in place?
Sure. So FAKs, as I said before, like tariffs, are really a carrier by carrier decision that are made here. So, if you already have an FAK with a carrier, that's where I'm going to kind of default back to. Make sure you're reaching out to your carrier to discuss how this is going to affect that here. As far as FAKs and the NMFC, we don't address FAKs at all here. We recognize that they're out there, but it's really going to be up to the carriers about how they're addressed when it comes to these new changes here. One thing to keep in mind with FAKs is, and this isn't a secret or anything, is as carriers look at FAKs, they're generally going to be more weighted to kind of decrease the risk for carriers here. So make sure that you're looking at it, get to know your dimensions and what class your freight is shipping at here, and see what works best for you as well if you're a shipper as far as FAKs.
And I think the third question we get the most is about mixed commodities.
Yeah.
And that's one that, as we're talking through, it's like we get it so much, I'd forgotten about it, then one popped in. So can you talk a little bit about what we're doing with mixed commodities, and then what is our recommendation for now?
Sure. So 2025-1 doesn't have any changes to any rules, and that includes mixed commodities rule. We've gotten a lot of feedback when it comes to mixed commodities being one of those rules. So it is something that we're taking a look at here for future dockets here, and seeing what makes the most sense when it comes to it. As you have maybe a pallet with mixed commodities today, keep in mind that it could be possible that those commodities could already be moving, even if it's two different item numbers, they could be moving to full scale density as it is, both of them, especially if they're sitting on a pallet here. So it could be possible that the entire pallet could be full scale density, but it definitely is something that we get a lot of feedback on, and realize that it's something we have to take a look at here. So For our team, it's just a matter of prioritizing, making sure that we're still getting through the item numbers that we'd like to move to full scale density in the future, but also knowing that we have to take a look at these rules and make sure that they make sense for how the NMFC is going to be set up for the future here.
Okay. And Holly, I'm going to ask you, can we let's demonstrate the lookup tool real quick, if you don't mind. And then as you're bringing that up, Keith, if someone doesn't wants to use the lookup tool and if they know the item, but they don't know the number to put in, how would they find that?
Well, really, so the lookup tool, as you said before, Joe, is really just looking up item numbers that are on 2025-1. In order to get this out quickly, we did, we made it as simple as possible here. So if you don't have an item number, my first suggestion would be to look it up in ClassIT. ClassIT. So it's hard to change there. I reverted back already. But you could request an interpretation as well, as I said before here, and reach out to us, purchase an interpretation. There is a charge for that, and you would just have to provide some information, and within 48 hours, within 48 hours they would go ahead and send you back an interpretation on that too.
You could also work with one of your carriers.
That's true.
One of the questions is, hey, I do surfboards. And you could work with a carrier and say, hey, can you, we ship with you. Can you give us the item number for that? I want to look at it. I mean, that's one of the things we hear a lot from the carriers is they want the shippers to look into this. So they're going to be more than willing, and the same, with a broker. So Holly, I've actually got an item number that also, once you go through that, we can look up as an example also. 51080.
So we see here that it is not part of the 2025-1 changes, which means it will not change.
Okay. And then what if you put -07, Holly?
No, I don't think that'll do anything.
That's gonna, yeah.
I know, I just wanted to use that as an
I
example.
I wanted to add on to that because, I think the second part of that question is, will it continue to remain exempt? And the great thing about the NMFC is that it's always changing, right? So as commodities change, it can be updated here. So I wouldn't say it's always going to be exempt from any changes. We'll continue to look at items, but keep in mind that from the major part of 2025-1 was us moving items with no handling, stowability, and liability issues to full-scale density. There were a lot of items that we didn't move because we had enough questions about, knew that they needed further research, and that may be one of them. I don't know that one off the top of my head here, but it does not mean that it'll continue to be exempt from any changes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, you can see here the types of information you get when you enter the item number. So whether or not it's going to change, whether or not it's canceled with reference, and then we give you the item that is going to replace it, whether it's moving to full density. So we'll provide you with, that basic information so that you can prepare for the changes.
And all this information, so this is a free tool. So anyone that's asking about certain item numbers, all you got to do is go to this website and type in your item number. You can also go to our website and you can actually download the docket So there is an updated docket, the 2025-1, and you can go to the docket itself and look at that. So Keith, what's the timeline for 2025-2?
Boy, that's a great question. Give me just a second here. So you got me, Joe. Joe likes to stump me once every.
You
every time
should,
we
yeah,
do
we.
this. So I should have been expecting that one, but I would expect the end of August will be when we will release the docket, and then we'll be taking feedback until the end of September. And then have the FCDC meeting, I believe, right at the beginning of October to review the feedback, and then that would mean that the disposition bulletin would be out about 2 weeks after that here. So think the middle to the end of October for the disposition bulletin. And then the docket would actually go into effect in the November timeframe here. So.
Okay. And then Keith, we talked about sending in things for interpretation to the team. How does that work as far as, do you pay for that? What's talk about a little bit of for a member, non-member, how does that work?
So as a member, the interpretations are complimentary here. Non-members, the interpretations do have a charge to them. I believe they're $50 each, or you can buy a pack of them if needed as well here. If you go to nmfta.org and up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link to our store, and there we go here. So. And then if you go to the NMFC pull down right there, interpretations, and it'll start leading you through it once you purchase them.
Okay. And that
Thanks,
like
Molly.
he said, that is one of the benefits of the membership. So if you're not a member of NMFT, that is one of the big, large benefits is that you do get these interpretations. So one of the questions has to do about pricing models. And so, we separate ourselves from pricing. We do the classification, not the pricing. So the question is, if say a commodity that was limited density and that would be a lower class, how does that affect pricing? Again, we don't do the pricing. We do know some prices will go up, some may go down, but we really don't set the prices. We're just doing the classification. Keith, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm just going to continue to reiterate that it's important that you get the dimensions and the weight on there in order to get the correct class, right? And that's going to be the clearest indicator, and make sure that you don't have reclassifications as a result here. So.
Okay. And then Keith, one of the terms we hear is straight class items. So can you talk about straight class, what it is, and is it quote unquote going away?
So the single class and modified density scales are not going away here. They're still ones that we can use when it comes to items with handling, stowability, and liability issues here. But any items eventually, and we didn't get to all items in 2025-1, we got to a large chunk of them. But items that don't have handling, stowability, and liability issues, so you think, 80+% of the freight that moves across LTL docks are on pallets, in boxes, easy to move around, easy to stow. We'll be moving to full scale density, but that doesn't mean that we're doing away with single class items or modified density scale as a tool we can use when it comes to items that have handling, stowability, and liability issues.
Okay. And then if the search tool refers to an item being canceled, then replaced by a new item, is a new item currently available now or not until July 19th?
not until July 19th.
Okay.
So these changes go into effect on July 19th.
Okay. Then Holly, if a customer has ClassIT, talk about how their subscription rolls into ClassIT Plus, and whether or not they need both platforms. Talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, first the transition. So if you're a current ClassIT subscriber and your subscription is active, meaning that it has not expired, as long as it hasn't expired by, July 15th, you will be automatically transitioned over to ClassIT Plus. So what does that mean? That means that you're actually going to have access to both products. You are going to have access to the current ClassIT using your current login. ClassIT Plus is built, it's more secure. We have a brand new login process that utilizes Okta. So you will actually have a completely different login for ClassIT Plus. You will receive an activation email for your Okta login by early July, and you'll just follow the instructions in that email to set up your to set up your Okta, and to activate your login credentials. So that's how you're going to gain access to ClassIT Plus. So you will not be sharing logins between the two programs. So what does that mean for you as far as like, how long will you have access to both, and why will you have access to both? So the current ClassIT will stay available, it'll stay live for several months, most likely until October, November of 2025. And that's going to contain all of the current data, all of the data pre-2025-1. ClassIT Plus is the only place where you can access the changes effective with 2025-1. So when you start using 2025-1, you will start using ClassIT Plus. We are leaving the current ClassIT, we're leaving that up and available for several months because we want people to transition over as soon as possible, but we also want them to have access to the current system in case there are any questions that arise. Perhaps you'll have a customer who enters the 2020, the data pre-2025-1, and it'll just help clarify things, and you'll be able to just, if you need to use both systems, you can, but it's just there for a safety net, so that people can transition over as they are ready to. ClassIT Plus, again, separate login, the only place you can get the 2025-1 data. And if you are a current ClassIT subscriber, either you or your company administrator has already received email communications from us about this transition process, and they will continue to receive notifications. And like I said, you'll receive your email for your Okta activation at the beginning of July, but later on in June, you'll also receive additional communications that'll just kind of like link to some maybe how-to videos and some help center / knowledge-based articles to help you prepare for transitioning over to ClassIT Plus.
And from a cost perspective, if you're under contract now, we're not going to bill you on July 19th. Your contract just continues over. So it's not like you're going to get a bill. We're going to honor that contract.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Joe. So we're going to not only are we transitioning over your subscribers and your licenses, we're also transitioning over your expiration date. So if your current ClassIT subscription expires on October 15th of 2025, ClassIT Plus will expire on October 15th, 2025. So you'll just transition right over, and you'll just renew your subscription just like you would if you were renewing the previous year, and you'll just continue. We're not going to be billing you on, in July to get access. Your access is going to be just smooth, and the only thing you'll need to do is set up your login.
Okay. One of the questions we've got, and we really haven't announced this yet, but it's a question, so we'll go ahead and talk about it, is, hey, we use my carrier, and sometimes it can suggest some class based on some of the information entered. We are working with my carrier, and they are going to, if you're a shipper, they're going to make an API call into ClassIT Plus. So they're going to get the information from us if you're a shipper straight into their system. So we are forming a partnership with my carrier and where they're getting data straight from us. So the problem where you'd have to reclassify the freight, that problem should go away because of the relationship that we're creating with my carrier. So that problem should go away. Another question that we've got is cancel with reference, new item, full density. Keith, what does that mean?
So one of the big things that we did with 2025-1, besides moving a lot of items to full scale density, is we actually condensed down the generic headings. And so when you see something like that, that likely means that that specific item number was actually canceled with reference to the new item number that should be on that sheet as well in Get classification. And it's just referencing that the new item number is full scale density as well.
Okay. Another question is, will it be an absolute requirement for a shipper to include dimensions on the bill of lading?
So again, we're not changing any bill of lading requirements. We highly suggest that you get dimensions on there because that's only going to help when it comes to any kind of reclasses or anything like that here. So
okay. And then let's see. Another question, will unique identifiers be used in the analysis stage, or will there be special identifiers in the final disposition? If in the final disposition, how will they be used?
I think that's a great question for you, Joe.
That is something we're still working through. So we don't have exact answers on that, but that is something we're still working through. Let's see. Go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I do have one that I would like to touch on real quickly. It was a question about if we're not getting access to the changes until July 19th, how are we going to prepare? So ClassIT Plus is actually available starting July 15th. So you will get early access to the data. And if you are a company admin, a company administrator, you will actually get access to ClassIT Plus at the beginning of July so that you can make sure that your subscription has transitioned over properly so that you can coordinate with the rest of your company to make sure everyone's set up correct. And so you will actually get early access. Also, if you're an API subscriber, if you are going to be using our ClassIT Plus API, you will actually get access to the data 2 weeks before July 19th. So we do have ways in which you will get early access to the data changes that are coming on July 19th. So just look out for those. If you're an API subscriber, you'll get 2 weeks beforehand. ClassIT Plus is being launched on July 15th, and company administrators will get access in early July.
Keith, one of the ones that I haven't seen before, I thought it's a good question, and I've got my thought. With the change happening on the 19th, if the item's picked up on the 18th and delivered on the 21st, which does it use? My thought is it's based on the pickup, not the delivery. Your thoughts?
Well, it's really going to depend on the carrier and how they update their system, in all honesty.
Okay.
You know, if it's being picked up, right, that does make sense. You know, and it definitely is a transition period, but we have to put kind of a stake in the ground, really. You know, so it's not an easy one size fits all answer there. It's going to depend a lot on the carrier and how they update their system, and if they have some links from the old item numbers to the new item numbers as well here. So you know, if I was a shipper, I know that I would use the item number based on the shipping date when it was picked up here. So.
With all items are going to be density based, be 13 class density based, Keith?
So if there's any item that we're saying is going to full scale density here, or even the items that are currently at full scale density, they're going to be based on the new 13 sub full density scale here. That full density scale is currently 11 subs, and we added 50 and 55 to it in order to allow for that heavy, dense freight here.
Okay. And then we got a few more questions about multiple pallets or mixed pallets. Say one's class 175, one's class 70. Explain a little. I know we're addressing it moving forward. Talk a little bit more about what to do before that change. So the overall density class averages to class 85. What's our recommendation in this scenario?
So I think the question is actually, you know, based on the mixed freight rule, you know,
Right.
what should they do, right? You know, and the mixed freight rule does. I'm gonna just kind of really kind of simplify it for the sake of time here. As you look at a pallet of freight and it's got different item numbers in it, that you should use the highest class, right? I'm just gonna kind of, you know, cut through most of the stuff there. You know, you should use the highest class basically. You know, so currently that's the way the mixed freight rule is written. Now with our move to density being the primary characteristic, again, you know, we've gotten a lot of feedback on it, so we know it's something we have to look at and make sure that it makes sense for how we're doing this going forward. So it is something we're currently looking at. I can't say when it's going to be changed or anything like that. You know, we take those rules really seriously, but it's definitely something that has to be looked at. So.
And Holly, can you give one of the questions we've gotten a lot in the demo is about the search tool, or I'm sorry, in beta is the search tool, and that's got to do with some of the questions we got here. Can you show what the search tool looks like in ClassIT Plus?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. So we have two different search features. We have the default search, which will take you directly to that item. And once you get to this item, you'll see all of the information affiliated with it, including any subs. You'll be able to click directly on that item and print or email the details. You'll be able to go to any supporting notes that are linked within the item. And if you go back to search, we also have what we call a detailed search. So if I just want to do a keyword search, I can do detailed search, and then that'll show me everywhere that my keyword was found. So that includes in the index, in specific articles, in packages, and even in supplements and dockets or rules. So once I see the item I'm looking for, I just click on that item and the details are populated in the right panel. We show exact results. So if you want to see information that is in the same generic heading, you just click see more and it'll show the rest of the information so that you can scroll down and see the other items within that generic heading. So if I were to come over to 1280, you'll see here that this is my result. This is the generic header. And then there's information in between and below. And if I want to see that, I just click on it and then I can scroll through and I can look at other items within the same generic heading.
And what if I wanted to put comments and share those comments with a coworker?
Yeah, absolutely. So we showed this earlier where you can go directly to the calculator. Well, you can also make this a favorite or a comment. You can see here that I already have this item as a favorite. I can also add comments. So once I add a comment, this is a test. So my comment is then affiliated with this item. And because I have this item as a favorite, it's accessible from my favorites and both from my comments. And I'll show you that in a second. But you can see right here in my comments dialog box, I have the opportunity to share it with my company. So we have a feature that's called a company common, which is available only if your company administrator has enabled it. And once it's enabled, it allows you to share things amongst your company with other users within your organization. And things that I can share include my favorites, my search history, my comments, synonyms. And so this is the company common. These are my favorites. And you can see here, these are all my favorites. And I can go in and I can add a comment anytime I want. And then share it. I can keep that comment private to myself. So all of my comments are affiliated with my login. But if I want to share it to the company common, I can share it there. And then I can easily go to the company common and then see everything that I've shared, as well as things that other people in my organization have shared with me. Anytime that you see this little group or people icon, you'll see who shared it and when. We also have the company common can also be divided up into teams. And so or departments, if you have specific groups within your organization that you want to share things with, but instead of sharing it with the entire company, you can set up these smaller teams so that you can share directly with that team. You can access everything from your dashboard and your comments as well, including anything that's been archived. So an archived comment is a comment that perhaps you've had affiliated with something that's been canceled or something that you've removed. So we don't want you to lose track of those comments. So here on the My Comments page, you can actually control your comments. You can edit them. You can unshare or share. You can also delete them. And once something becomes archived, it is up to you to then delete that comment. We don't want you to lose access to any of your comments. So.
Great, thank you. All right, so I think that's all the time we have. Keith, any last comments?
A lot of questions today about mixed freight, and that's great here. I just want to remind people that, a lot of the comments were really good, and it matches up a lot of the feedback that we've gotten so far on it. And just want to remind people that we are reviewing the rules to make sure that they really coincide with our changes to density being the primary characteristic. So make sure you keep an eye on what we're doing on that in future dockets that are coming up. If you go to NMFC changes, you can sign up for updates from us as well. So they'll come through into your email here.
And Holly, last words?
Yeah, just thank you to everyone who joined us today. ClassITplus.com. Go check it out. Sign up for updates, and thank you again.
All right, thanks everyone. And for specific questions about commodities and things like that, please reach out. We'd be happy to research, and also please use the resources below. Thanks all.